Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Jedaiah Ramnarine, the founder of Prudence, also known as JRP UAP Research. And today I am going to speak about the metallic Flying Saucer UFO fleet that I encountered recently. Now, before I do go into it, I'd like to give a very special thanks to my team, my wife, Danielle, and of course our good friend and ally, Lewis Gordon. Our team has been monumental in doing this entire operation. There are a lot of things on the back end that we often do not necessarily talk about, but having this operation afloat takes a lot of work, and it is a lot of hours. Just so you guys know, how we actually recorded this was on home base, which is a UAP surveillance system. This is a surveillance system composed of 4 cameras, although 2 of them actually contain 2 cameras of their own. So in reality, it's about something like about 6 cameras set up and distributed throughout the home. There are 3 cameras in particular that are looking in the northeast, and there is one that is a 180 panoramic that is looking in the southwest. This way we have coverage all around the home, generally speaking, as best as we can, and we are able to capture usually multi-sensor, multi-camera footage. We were able to capture the fleet on all 4 cameras. We were able to see where they were converging. Now, it's important to understand that this event in itself has been a buildup over a long period of time. And I'd also like to extend my thanks for that matter, now that we're speaking about this, to the rest of the JRP community and even those on UFO Believers for all of the love and support that has been given. I'd like to thank everybody who stuck with this project, who stuck with this operation, who didn't give up, because I really wanted also to deliver, especially for your trust, your support, and everything like that. I wanted to make sure that what we claimed and what we put out there could be achieved. Because quite frankly, we had some big claims, and that was, of course, the idea of contact with these entities, what we concerned as non-human intelligence. Now, in reality, the field of ufology is very polluted. So when people usually come out with claims like this, it can be very easy to dismiss, and understandably so, because a lot of them are not true, or they might be exaggerated or filtered through people's beliefs, traumas, politics, ideologies, and you name it. And that is why at JRP we really sought to do the right thing. We sought to understand these entities on the terms that they want to be understood, and not force an explanation, and not force human anthropomorphism to take shape and eradicate what actual truth might really be there. So our efforts have built up over time. We have gone through all of the 9 yards, the setbacks, the mistakes, the losses. We have gone through the learning processes to learn what works, learn what doesn't work, learn what cameras work, learn what cameras don't work, what approaches work, what approaches don't work. We learned what we had to give up and whatnot. So that's why I do want to put it out there that although I might be the person that had the direct encounter, it is a collective group effort here at JR Prudence that produced it, from our team to the community, and it is still teamwork that is producing further footage to come, because we found a lot more footage and there will be a lot more to come for that matter. Now, that being said, let us speak about this event in itself. But to speak about this event, first we have to dial the clock back to 2010. Now, I've had a couple encounters that were absolutely life-changing and life-altering. I won't get into all of them right now, but I'll speak about the ones in particular that are relevant to this case. In 2010, in Miami, Florida, I encountered flying saucers. One was a medium-sized one, or a bigger one, and the other was a smaller one. It resembled what Bob Lazar called the sport model. And there was a smaller one that looked like a scout ship with it, or something like that. Now, this is not any claim that I support or condone or condemn Bob Lazar's claims. I do not. I am completely neutral. I'm simply saying that these flying saucers exist. Now, there are many narratives around them. Bob Lazar has his own narrative, but there are other people who have their narrative out there. There are hoaxes and frauds that have their narratives about it too. And there's a way to actually identify if it's real footage or not, and we'll actually get to that later. Bottom being is that there are many different stories about this phenomena, and specifically the flying saucer image. And this is one of the most misleading things, especially once it gets into recycled theosophy and all sorts of garbage spiritual teachings. The reality is that these things are beyond any kind of teachings. These things are beyond any kind of standard spirituality. They are beyond any of that, and they are not human. They are not Pleiadian. They are not any form of it, or Nordics, or reptilians, or greys, or mantis. They're none of these things. These things are a human lens to try to understand the unknown. But real non-human intelligence is interdimensional, and it is above and beyond the classic ufology stories. And I think that's very important to point out. But nonetheless, back in 2010, I did involve myself in many of the classical ufology stories, including the spirituality aspects of them. However, that being said, it didn't completely consume my own connection to the phenomena. Personally, I just wanted to know what and who these entities were. I just had love and respect. I thought it was very cool when I was young. Now, it's very interesting because people sometimes think about creativity and imagination as a waste of time, or watching media or things with aliens might seem like a waste of time. But it is most certainly not. And that is because, as I wrote in the coherence hypothesis, that there is a connection with consciousness, UAP, and NHI. There is definitely a connection going on here. So if a person is focused on these things with passion, with genuine intent, not just to dip their foot in the water, but to really commit to it, then there is a likelihood that something will happen. And in my case, I was very deeply committed to it. I had written my first book, my comic book, Praetor, and it was about aliens. It was about flying saucers and stuff like that. And, to my surprise, when I actually see them in real life, and it was like, wow, this is actually real. So in truth, what had happened was I was actually meditating quite a lot, because I had committed to this idea that, I really do want to see them, and I'll get my act together and I'll do what I have to in order to make it work. And this was really one of the initial starts to my journey as being a Jedi, so to speak, as being someone who meditates, who does have ESP, and so on and so forth. And this is why this is a part that for the hard nuts and bolts crowd might be difficult to digest. But the reality of this phenomena has never been pure nuts and bolts. I'm very sorry to disappoint you there, but it's just not. And I'm not saying that it is entirely a bad thing to have a scientific basis and to have some kind of grounding to understanding this phenomena, because I believe that you do. There is a lot of the spirituality gets out of hand. Although there are some spiritual concepts that are valid, there are some metaphysical concepts that are definitely valid. But a lot of it gets out of hand because of New Ageism, because of all the teachings, all the dogmas, all the religion and UFO religions that are attached to this stuff. But if you're to strip all that stuff away, there's most definitely a metaphysical connection. And meditation in particular is definitely crucial. Now, I want to be very clear about this. I'm not going to come here to tell you you need to start meditating and you have to start meditating 20, 30 minutes a day and close your eyes and listen to this specific track. I want to be very clear that I'm not telling anybody that they need to do what I did and to go my particular path to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. It doesn't have to only be about NHI either. I'm simply telling you what I did. I'm simply telling you what works for me. And in my case, I meditated, and specifically to the track 852 Hertz by Source Vibrations. Those guys in particular, I strongly recommend. At least some of their old tracks were very good. And that's what I use in particular. And my intent was to connect. And 852 Hertz proposes that it increases intuition, it increases return to spiritual order, and telepathy, and returning to this kind of connection with the whole third eye thing. Now, take it as you will, whatever your beliefs on metaphysical concepts or religious or spiritual concepts. I'm here to report to you what actually works. And I did use this particular meditation, and I did actually, some people would call it summon. I personally don't like that word. I personally would say that I connected with real non-human intelligence in Miami, Florida, after going through a period of intensive meditation and trying to connect to these entities. And I did in a park in Miami, Florida, in Kendall, and they were flying. And at first, I think this is very important because these details will matter for the 2025 documented footage that we actually do have. is that at first I thought they were birds. At first, I remember seeing a flock of birds. I know, pretty ironic, right? Because you see comments like this, oh, it's a flock of birds, oh, it's just birds. But at first I saw a flock of birds moving away, flying away. I thought it was unusual how they were flying, because they were flying as if something was disturbing them. You know how when animals like sense like a storm is coming, like that electromagnetic disturbance, and they're like, okay, gotta get out of here, and they kind of do that. So the way that these animals were reacting to NHI and the actual UFOs was like a natural phenomena, which I thought was very interesting. So I was just walking towards the park and I saw the flock of birds moving that way. And I remember I was looking in this direction and I saw these two birds in particular that were coming closer and closer. And like I said, guys, this is very important. At first, it's very easy to think that they're birds. And this is specifically with flying saucers. I am not speaking about all UFO types. I cannot, because I have not seen all UFO types, and I cannot claim to know all UFO types. I'm speaking very specifically with flying saucers that I personally have a very deep connection with. So specifically with flying saucers, it's because of the dome, how it's shaped. It's shaped in such a way at the bottom that the dome can kind of look like a bird-like shape from a distance, especially when they're flying upside down. And they tend to fly upside down quite often. They fly upside down, they fly to their side, and we'll get to all of that later. In this particular instance in 2010, this one was not flying upside down, but it was still doing a very alien movement. So how it moved was a barycenter. For those of you who might not be familiar with that term, basically a barycenter is when two orbits are essentially, two objects are orbiting each other. For example, the Earth and the Moon have a barycenter in particular, and that barycenter is a point. It's not really a real point, but it's a point that we can gauge to say, okay, well, this is where they're generally orbiting around. So the two ones, the bigger one, the Bob Lazar-looking sport model, and the smaller one, which was like a scout ship, were orbiting each other like this. And yes, they were moving as well. So that orbit plus the movement in that direction. And from my point of view, walking towards the park, they were coming in this direction, moving towards there. So I remember I called up my childhood best friend at that time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually seeing it and whatnot. And he was like, what? What are you talking about? No way. And he was sleeping. So I hanged up on him. I was like, I don't have time for dealing with, Debbie Doubt right now. And I ran towards the saucer. Now, what's interesting is that I had no inclination to record it. I did not care to record it. I had my phone. I literally called someone. But I didn't care to record it. I just wanted to connect with it. I didn't care if people believed me at that time. So I ran towards it, and I ran into the park, and it was extremely close. Maybe it is because I didn't use my phone that it came close or something. But it was extremely close. I would say it was probably about maybe 50 feet away from the trees. It was very close. And it was pretty obvious that it was something personal. There was nobody outside. And this isn't busy Miami. So, that's kind of odd. Miami is a very busy place. Some of the suburban areas can be a little more quiet, but not really. Miami is usually very busy. And I lived there for years, so it was kind of odd. It was just like, okay, there's nobody outside. I remember back then I was jokingly saying, oh, the rapture happened. Not that I believed in that per se, but it was that odd when I walked outside that day. Clear day. Sunny, I didn't see any clouds. It was just clear, and it was a very beautiful day. I'll always remember that in particular. So it was indistinguishable what it was. It gave no sound. I was the only person that saw it, of course. And, back then I had a lot of struggle because I was back in 2010 and people were not as open to this phenomena as they are now. And I had a lot of people that didn't necessarily immediately believe me, of course, because I didn't have the footage. Understandably so, there's a lot of hoaxes and frauds and whatnot, and a lot of people trying to get attention, so I understand that. But for me, that was something that, especially for the past 15 years, going on 16 years, as of the time of recording this video, it haunted me, because I tried to get answers in other places, in teachings, and this conspiracy and that conspiracy, and it was like they withdrew. And it wasn't until I got out of that last year, in particular, especially, that I really, they started coming back along. I started seeing the subtle signs at first that began working its way up to the 2025 encounter itself. Now, the 2025 encounter itself is very interesting because we started JR Prudence to really investigate and understand the truth of what is going on with NHI and UAP without all the dogma, all the, no offense, but all the nonsense, myth stuff, anything to do with like a religion replacement or spiritual teaching or something like that. We want to get away from all of this. We want to get away from all of the Hollywoodism. And we really committed ourselves to understanding what's going on. We made sure that it wasn't going to be some cult or some religion or some grifter story or something like that. We want to do it legitimate. That's why personally I even held back on doing books. I held back on doing podcasts. I held back on selling things. The only thing that we have is a subscription model to support JR Prudence because cameras and equipment, this stuff is very costly, guys. To create these kinds of films, the editing software, it is very expensive. And then on top of that, with home base, that might sound like a fun idea, but I'm going to be very honest with you. Home base is a 24/7 job, pretty much. You have to spend long, grueling hours analyzing footage, and sorry to disappoint you, but it's not just about developing AI trackers to track unidentified objects. It doesn't work that way. And I'll get to explaining more about that too, especially when we get into the 5 UAP observables. So in 2025, that's when we started JR Prudence, and that's why we worked our way to the truth. We came in such a way to use a mythological mask at first to then unveil, hey, we're not in it for that. That was just a cover. We're in it for the truth. We're here to dispel these illusions and dispel a lot of the folklore that has not helped people. The folklore is a comfortable zone. It's entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I think it's very entertaining as well. But it's LARP, ultimately. Many of these stories, even with abductions, I don't doubt that there might be one or two cases that are legitimate, but a lot of these stories are also coming from psyops as well. They're also coming from things that are not necessarily true. And people's own mental and emotional stability is actually quite important in this. The credibility is important in some of these witness accounts because even if witnesses do experience something, it's still filtered through their trauma, through their beliefs, through their culture. So they might encounter something, but they might not actually be explaining it correctly. It might still be going through the filter of their life experiences. So we really wanted to do it without that filter getting in the way. Now, to be fair, and this is epistemological honesty, we humans have limitations on knowledge, right? The languages that we're using, mathematics. Mathematics is not a universal language. I know that people like to say that, but that is not true. That is just our human understanding of how the universe works to the best that we can understand it. And same with our physics. So we have to use what we have to build a bridge of understanding for what else is out there. And that's why we do use terms like the aligned to describe the background force of the universal consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. You can call it God, you can call it flying spaghetti monster. Personally, it doesn't matter to me. Call it whatever you want. But there is a substrate of background intelligence that is connecting events and information on a quantum scale to create classic reality results. It is very real. And I have proven this multiple times with my studies. The coherence hypothesis was also proven lately with the 2025 Flying Saucer fleet footage. Now let's forward all the way to the flying saucers. I know this has been quite an opening, but all of this was necessary to really understand the weight and the impact of why this is so important. So the truth is that this was something very personal, and at the same time it was also something for JR Prudence in particular, for the efforts that we have been doing here. And finally, it is also to give humanity, hopefully, an understanding that, hey, these things are real, and hey, there is more going on. I'm not going to give you any further answers or absolute certainties, but that is a start. And I basically went back to how it was. I remember that I was recording certain lights in the sky at a certain point, and I had the intuition that I needed to stop that. I needed to focus on my wife, focus on moving to my new home, focus on that life that we had there, and to change my approach up, build the UAP surveillance network, and to also get back into meditation and to get back to the basics of what actually worked. And I did get back into meditation without dogma, without all of the spirituality stuff going too far. Just get back to the basics and to combine my scientific understanding with the metaphysical reality. Because here at JR Prudence, I'm the scientist, I'm the main scientist, I'm the main researcher and investigator here, and I have to often employ logic, literally the scientific method, and the investigative method to even analyze a lot of our own footage. But with the UFO fleet, a lot of that wasn't necessary because it was unambiguous. When they actually came again this time, it was in broad daylight. It was a beautiful day. It was on Christmas Eve, so it was like they were gift dropping a present. And they came in such a way where similar events happened. Clear, beautiful, sunny day, and the birds were visibly disturbed again. I remember going upstairs, and this was after meditating again to the 852 hertz track, the same track. I remember meditating to it, and I went back upstairs to check the command center, to check the NVR and check the feeds and everything like that. And I saw the birds acting strange outside. I saw them. I saw at least 3 of the objects, especially appearing on UFO Hunter 4, which was looking northeast. UFO Hunter 3 is in the adjacent room, looking a little more north, and UFO Hunter 5 is on the ground outside, looking more up. UFO Hunter 2 is in the front. UFO Hunter 5 is 180 panoramic, so it's technically 2 cameras in one, and UFO Hunter 2 is also the same as well. It's just a Wi-Fi version. But I remember seeing, the birds visibly disturbed the same way back in 2010, and I remember seeing the saucers appear on UFO Hunter 4, and they were dancing. They were doing that. I knew it immediately by their movement, because on the camera at first there was distortion, that was one of the 5 UAP observables, which is the space-time bubble that they actually have around them, and we'll talk more about that. And I remember seeing it first. I knew immediately. I was like, this is them. This is them again. This is the same force that changed my life, that set me on this path. And the way that they were orbiting in particular was just incredible. This is it, guys. Like, I know for some of you who might not have experienced this stuff, it might be very difficult to understand. And even with some of you who are saying, oh, it's reverse military engineering or something like that. Now, I don't doubt that the military have tried to reverse engineer these things or to emulate them. But the real ones that are real NHI, they do not move anything like what humans can produce, guys. I'm very, very, very sorry. The real UFOs, the real saucers are moving upside down, moving on their side. They're going this way, going that way. They're doing directional changes. They're showing all 5 UAP observables that humans cannot reproduce, even if we had billions of dollars and the finest minds working on it. We just cannot do this. And acknowledging these limitations are important. And the same with space humans. Space humans cannot do this either. I'm sorry, guys, but these things are cosmologies. I don't doubt that there could be humanoid ET life forms out there, but these entities are not that. They're interdimensional. And the UFOs themselves could very much be the entities themselves. We don't need a human anthropomorphizing lens to say, oh my gosh, there must be a pilot inside, because that's how we understand aircraft and spaceships and whatnot. The way these things move, they don't move like human technology, including advanced human technology. They don't move like that. They move very, dare I say, alien. They move foreign. So yeah, they came, they were dancing, they were doing circles, they were moving up and down, they were tilting upside down, they were moving on their side, they were instantly going this way, instantly going that way, they were phasing in, phasing out. They did everything. They even had the hypersonic velocity in UFO Hunter 2 with one of the UFOs that came about. It literally makes his turn, stops, goes here, goes back down. They did it all. It was just absolutely incredible. And we have all of this on footage. As of the time of this video, we haven't actually produced all of the footage yet because it's that much footage and we need to carefully edit it and carefully analyze it. We have some of it up, but we're hoping to get more out as the weeks roll by and to really properly give this the attention and editing that it actually deserves. But yeah, the UFO fleet appeared and I sat and I waited and I meditated and I really listened. And it was sure enough them again. And I was obviously very happy that they came again. And they came after I cleaned myself up, after I got rid of all of the ufology nonsense, all of the dogma, all of the spiritual teachings, all of the cult nonsense that's out there. I got rid of all that stuff. I got rid of all the conspiracies. I got rid of all the fear. And I just went back to the basics. I just went back to, hey, I really love these entities, whatever they are. And I really want to connect with them. And I really want to understand them. And I'm doing this even if you guys don't want to show up, because it's just out of respect, and it's not even necessarily out of curiosity. I'm not even curious. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate what you did back in 2010. Love to maintain that connection. And sure enough, they did show up. And that is what is so amazing about this, is that it's a proof of concept for what we do here at JR Prudence, that it does work. This idea of a resonant living, this idea of peace, of attracting these entities through of goodness of heart, of pure-heartedness. There is truth to this. I cannot provide all the answers yet, but what I can tell you is that there is definitely truth to this, and that's what I use for this to work, because I didn't even care to know about every single thing about them. I just respected them enough to say, hey, I want to have a genuine connection. Even if you're evil, even if you're good, even no matter what you want to do. And they showed up because of having that respect and allowing them to tell their own story. That's why we're focusing so much on the footage, not just on making stories about it or cosmologies about it, because we're going to let them do the talking, not us humans or any other human or any other conspiracy or stuff like that. But sure enough, it did work, and it was through meditation again that they came. So they're definitely attracted to that kind of energy, to that kind of force. Now, I want to be very clear here, because some of you might think, oh, does that mean that I get into all of this chakra and stuff like that? I'm going to say no. I think a lot of the New Age stuff is actually very damaging. I think there's some concepts that you would need to use your discernment for to understand what's going on. But I think especially when it is pulled from the East, and usually Americans or Europeans try to make their spin on it, I think it becomes extremely corrupted. And I think at that point, you should just forget it altogether. Some of the original Eastern concepts, especially in things like Hinduism, I have an Indian background. My dad was Indian. His grandparents, or great-grandparents, they came from India as well. So I can tell you firsthand, and this is with respect to my heritage, but I can tell you that a lot of the concepts in Hinduism and the Vedic texts and stuff are very oppressive. So recycled ideas of this, even in good intent, can carry on some of these ideas, and they're not exactly the best. So I wouldn't recommend using a lot of these ideologies and religions to try to explain what is going on here. Now, I will say that some symbology is okay. It's all right. When you start getting into all of the, past lives and all of this and that and the other, you need to be kind of careful with this stuff and about the cosmology of the universe. Try to understand these entities for what and who they are, not for what you want to paint them to be, based upon your beliefs and your ideologies, even if you don't want to call it beliefs, right? So the thing is that they are obviously a force that is connected to the divine, if you want to call it that, because that is what I prayed for. I didn't just pray and meditated to connect to aliens per se. Yes, I knew they were alien as being foreign from here, but I wanted to connect with the developers of this simulation, the gods or angels or the ones that are really moving this whole thing or checking in on it. Use whatever term or phrase you want. That's what I wanted to connect to. So these entities are not just merely extraterrestrials from other worlds. They're not simply a galactic federation. And if you hear anything like that with Star Trek, it's pretty much a lie. Anything to do with an extraterrestrial federation of any kind. If it has the word federation, it's fake. And for that matter, I also want to comment here on the 5 UAP observables, because in the videos, you can see this as well. Now, we do have some parts where the footage is pretty clear. You can see, okay, that's a flying saucer. But there are other times where it gets a little distorted. And then we noticed as well, the camera, the feeds themselves were getting distortion. You could see aftershocks in the feeds from these objects passing near them. It's insane. And the thing about real UAPs, real UFOs, if they're NHI in particular, they're going to give off distortions in the camera. If they're not doing that, it's probably not a real UFO. UFOs do this. Real NHI have a space-time warp bubble around them that is displacing space and time. This is how the real ones actually work. So if you're not seeing that in a video, you should be sketched. If something is a little too clear, you should be sketched. It could be AI, it could be hoax, it could be toy models and stuff like that. The next thing as well is movement. If you see a video of something just wobbling like this, it's probably fake. The reality is how these things move is that they move upside down. They move upside down. They move to their side. They go like this, then they go like this, and they go like this, they go like this. They move alien. They don't pose for the camera. They don't do that. They are elusive by nature. So the 5 observables are important. Does it have instant acceleration? Does it have instant directional changes? How is the movement? Does it defy aerodynamics? Do you see the space-time bubble? Is there distortion in the feeds? All of these are the telltale signs of genuine, actual NHI and UFO activity. There are a lot of videos out there. There are a lot of pictures out there. But the reason why a lot of them do get flack, and rightfully so, even some of my old stuff, is because they're not displaying the things that actually break our scientific understanding. And a lot of the old frauds and hoaxes that had toy models of this stuff, they displayed none of the 5 UAP observables because they were fake. But the real UFOs are going to display real alien behavior. They're going to display behavior that is not possible, that a model on a string can do. They're going to display behaviors that a balloon cannot do, that a plane or a drone cannot do. And of course, these objects are silent. So this experience in particular, it has been a huge validation. It has been a connection that personally I have to sit on for a long time to come. It solidifies the foundation of JR Prudence, and for everyone that was connected to it and supports it, it pays them back. And that their time, their effort, their funding was worth it. That this was not just, smoke and mirrors. This was not just some cult or just something for grifters or just trying to, attention or any of that nonsense or CGI or something like that. This was the real deal. And that's why I'm so happy and proud of this event and thankful and grateful. I don't want to exploit these entities. I don't want to all of a sudden be doing podcasts and stuff like that. I mean, we will, but you know what I mean, to just go around and just be doing my personality. Yes, I do love to speak and I can communicate and whatnot, but I've held these things back because I wanted to focus to be on them, not about humans. We're here for the NHI, and that is what JR Prudence is about. I appreciate the love and support, but I also just do want to make that point clear, is that it's about them. That's why I did this, because everything else was about the channeler or the prophet or the teacher or the contactee or all of this nonsense. That's not what this is about here. And I personally believe the reason why they do allow me to have these experiences and encounter it is because they know that I'm not going to exploit them. And I'm not. Even if I might have made mistakes in the past with misunderstanding them, that's okay. And that's why I want to say too to all of you out there, even if you might have made mistakes, and even if you might have had beliefs that are not correct, you don't have to be angry about that for the rest of your life or dogma or something like that. You could let that stuff go and try to understand this stuff, because there has been a lot of deception in this field. That is very true. So it is my hope that the footage and this video can help people move forward and to inspire people, because it has really inspired me, and all of my dreams in life have come true, and I'm a very satisfied and peaceful person at this point. So I am really, really, really happy with what has happened here. And I do believe that there will be more to come, but I'm not in a rush to do that either. I'm not in a rush to just get the next best footage. Like I said, what they have given us here is a gold mine that is legendary, that goes down in the books, is among the greatest UFO footage of all time. It's military grade footage, really. And it's just incredible. So there's so much here to absorb, but I just really want to thank everybody who has supported the journey up to this day. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I really love you guys very much. And I just want to thank you. It's just a lot of gratefulness, and I want to thank the actual NHI that really did show up here, because it's undeniably them. There's not a doubt in my mind of what this is, especially as a person who encountered it in person. And I think the videos are pretty obvious as well. So thank you guys very much, and there will be more updates to come in the future. Take care.